Sure. Well, I had met men like this, like Mikey Saber, when I was doing research in the adult film world. Over the last 10 years with my co-screenwriter, I had made another film, 3 films back, called Starlet, and it doesn't focus on the adult film world, but it takes place against the adult film world. So, does this need to be translated? Should I keep my answers short? Okay, great. So I met a handful of men like Mikey Saber, and I realized that this was an archetype in the adult film world. And the term that you just stated, suitcase pimp, nobody knows this term. It's it's just used within the adult film world. So when I heard it, I was actually amused by the actual slang term, and realized that it was applied to these men who essentially, yes, lived off of they were male talent who lived off the female talent in the adult film world. They all had similar characteristics, and I found their psyche to be very complex and very compelling, because I was torn when I was hanging out with them, meaning that I was on the surface they are appealing and charming because they have to win people over, and I was charmed by them. I was hanging out with them, I was entertained, I was laughing. And then at the end of the night, I would be driving home, and I would be thinking about our conversations and what I heard them say, and I would be questioning myself. I would be like, why was I laughing? Why was I amused? Some of the stuff they're saying is despicable, and they're reprehensible people. Why they had me with many mixed emotions. So what I was trying to do, what I was trying to do was tackle a character study that would hopefully have the audience put in the same position as I was, feeling those mixed emotions. 1 minute laughing with them, and the next minute questioning why they were laughing, etc., etc. So they were very unaware of the negative effect that they were having on people around them. They were extremely narcissistic. They also always saw themselves as the victim, right? But at the same time, again, they were also they had this blind faith about their future. They were they were very optimistic about their future, and I saw this as a survival technique. I saw that that's what they had to do in order to survive. So again, very complex characters that I just knew about 10 years ago that someday we would try to tackle this character study. COVID film for 2 reasons. It was shot during COVID, but it was also shot due to COVID. I had been developing a film up in Vancouver for over 2 years post the Florida Project, and it was a much bigger film, a film about drug user activism. So it was something that just cannot be shot until COVID is under control. So that film came to a screeching halt, and we found ourselves in Los Angeles sitting around mourning the end of that, or at least the pause on that, when the opportunity arose to make a much smaller film. And we happened to have this idea for Red Rocket on the back burner because it was something that stemmed from our research over the last 10 years. So we already had Red Rocket worked out in our heads. We knew beginning, middle, and end, supporting characters. All we had to do was actually move forward with finding a location. That was the only thing that wasn't worked out, finding a location, and then jumping right into pre-production and fleshing out the script. And that involved, during COVID, keeping it very, very small. It was a crew of 10, and that's essentially my 4 other producers wearing many hats. honestly, it was pretty, I feel so grateful for my team because they're so talented and they're able to take on so many roles. And I'll give you an example of how this worked. Shi Ching Zhou, who is one of the producers on the film, she's playing Miss Fan in the film. She was the one who owns the donut shop, okay? So she's an actor, she's a producer, she's doing continuity on the film, and she's doing costume design on the film. So, and she's, and plus little tasks here and there. So you can see how a producer had to take on many different roles. And that's essentially how it was done. A little pod that we kept safe by keeping in a little pod and sticking to the the COVID compliance rules of the Directors Guild. So hopefully I painted a picture of how that was done. And yes, very little money, a quarter of the budget of my last film, Florida Project, and done very indie style, guerrilla style. No permits, no permission, just running and gunning. Okay, so that's that. And then the end of the film, the very end of the film is obviously something that I would like to be left up for interpretation, because there's many different ways to interpret it. There are, of course, literal endings, and when I first had this fleshed out, yes, the ending was very literal. Mikey was on his way to California with strawberries. Simple. But that was also too simple for me. It wasn't... I actually really enjoy as an audience member, when I'm allowed to bring my own ideas to the table, meaning that I appreciate sometimes when films allow audiences to write their own endings. And so this is what I'm trying to do here, because, you can actually question whether or not strawberry even exists. That's one way of looking at it. Whether strawberry is just a retelling of the Lexi Mikey story, or perhaps she's full fantasy, and it's just the way that Mikey is being able to cope with his new life of having to go back to his small town that he never wanted to return to. Yeah, the ending is really up to you, but I just wanted to avoid those very simple, literal endings, because there's only a handful of things that could possibly happen.